I wanted to talk this time about the improvements I've been making in therapy. Over the past couple of weeks, my therapist has drawn my attention to the fact that how much I have actually improved over the last year. You know, certain things that have happened in my life and recently, and that I've had to sort of challenge, I've been able to mentalize my way through them you know, um, sort of been able to look at it from a different perspective and not done what I normally do and start at the beginning and woof, woof, I'm straight at the end. I've been able to kind of think about the here and now and learn from that, if that makes sense. You know, 2 weeks ago I started a part-time college course, and go back a year, I would have been shitting myself to do that. I wouldn't have even got past the application stage. I would have just gone, no, you know what, fuck it, I'll do it later. But I've done it, and I'm so glad I've done it. And hopefully there's going to be a a benefit from me doing this. Because I now have ideas of what I'd like to do in the future. Um, and I guess this is the start of it all. Um, you know, there's just little things like my English teacher randomly said to me, like, just concentrate on the concrete, and that to me meant so much more than the context in which it was said, because you know that's what I should be doing. I should be focusing on the concrete and what is actually happening around me. you know, and like my therapy tells me to keep questioning everything, to question the voices, to, question this paranoia of, people reading my mind and, people knowing, something about me. And I should sort of just sit back and think about things, give myself that space to think and find alternatives to what might actually be happening, which I know it's easy for me to say now, but, it's something I can build up whilst it's happening. If it does happen again, or, when it happens again, I just need to remember to say, like, right, stop, go back, and analyse things. You know, um, I've just realised I say a lot. Um, but there's also areas like, I'm starting to feel my depression's coming back, and I know it always does around this time of year, but compared to this time last year, I ain't fucking going back to that. There's no way I'm going to go back to that suicidal mess that I was. I'm going to do everything in my power to prevent that, and and it's in areas like that where you can see that I'm not doing the idea then end, because I'm questioning things. Like, so when I'm going like, shit, what am I going to be in a year's time? All this shit's going to happen. I don't have no idea. I can look back and go, I said that last year, and look where I am now this year. I'm in such a better place mentally, you know. So I can hold on to these little bits of information that will help me through all the shit that goes on, So I just can't, given this whole journey that, like, I've gone through, and, some of you have gone through with me, and, I'm really fucking, like, happy at the comments and, like, messages I've got because of it. But it's really nice to sort of be in this position where, you know what, I am happy in an extent, but definitely a lot happier than I was a fucking year ago. You know, especially in the last couple of months, I've made big changes, and I just jumped in at the deep end without knowing what could happen. And you know what? It benefited me. So, yay! Happy Dom. This week in therapy, we were talking about this notion I have of not being good enough, and I seem to apply it to every part of my life. Whether it's if I'm writing or if I'm drawing, or just me generally as a person. I always convince myself that I'm not good enough. That I can't do it, and sometimes that hinders me, that I do my usual I'm not good enough end, therefore there's no point me trying it. But I heard some rumours lately, and it kind of just made me think, and it's all good and well, my therapist saying, question this idea that you're not good enough. But every morning I wake up, and throughout the day my brain reminds me in the harshest way of why I'm not good enough. And you go back to like December last year, and when I was suicidal, and my best friend talked me out of doing it. She saved my life. When it came down to doing it for her, I couldn't do it. I just wasn't good enough. And although I did my best, I did every fucking thing I could, it just wasn't good enough. And how I know all the ways I can look at it, and all the ways it can be explained to me, but it doesn't change the fact that I was not good enough. And I'm going to have to live with that fact for the rest of my life. Right, in this video I'm going to answer 2 of the questions that I got asked, and they were how did I end up in treatment or getting help, and what are my hallucinations. So logically we'll start with how I ended up in treatment. It must have been about 3 years ago. I had a breakdown. I was in a really kind of mentally abusive relationship, and I ended up having a breakdown and started getting massive anxiety attacks at work and panic attacks around people, to the point that I actually used to get, from here right down and all down my arms, I used to have a stress rash. And that was the reason I went to the GP, was because of this rash. And speaking with the GP, they thought I was depressed. So I had to go through on the antidepressants. But when that didn't help elevate my mood or didn't help with anything, they sent me
for a assessment with the psych team, and after the first assessment, I was told I was too complicated for that team, so I had to go up to the next level, which was obviously the personality disorder side, and that was when I was diagnosed with having borderline personality and antisocial personality disorders, and that was when I was given the choice for treatment. So I had to go on. I was put on the waiting list for my treatment. But during the 2 years it took from the being put on the waiting list to actually starting my treatment, my mental health went kind of boom, plummeted, and I was going for assessment after assessment after assessment, and each time there was a different diagnosis. So, I had they screwed up because they had a psychologist diagnose me. So obviously I had to go and have another diagnosis with a psychiatrist who added dissociative disorder, and then I got really bad and I needed some help, but because I was on a waiting list, I couldn't receive that help. So I had to go private and see a private doctor, and that's where they diagnosed me with the schizotypal personality disorder. And then a bit later on, I started seeing one-to-one with a psychiatrist after being referred to him from the early intervention service. And I started seeing him, and he added the fact that I have some autistic traits, but because of the way I see the world, it's not autistic. So it's this weird area where I share the traits of autism, but I'm not actually autistic. So that was that. And then, yeah, it was just literally 2 years of waiting for this treatment, and then just suddenly getting summoned for treatment. There was no warning. It was a letter came, and in a month you start treatment. These are the days. This is it, and that was that. To be honest, and obviously through my treatment, I've been diagnosed with having in the schizophrenia spectrum, having the psychosis, and which leads on, which now leads on to the second question, which is what are my hallucinations? And this is the hard one to answer, because I've apparently suffered psychosis since I was 4, and that was when I started seeing this shadow man that I still see nowadays, and it kind of has got progressively worse. This is what I believe. So this is, I don't know, this is my delusion. I'm not sure, but I believe that I'm not in the right body. This isn't my body, but I've been put here to write what the darkness tells me. And if I don't do it, I get punished by the Shadow Man. And the reason I can't tell if it's real or not is because my therapy doesn't deal with psychosis. The way they've approached it is by saying you experienced it, therefore it happened to you. And in my head, I'm like, so it happened, so it's real. But the therapy has taught me to question everything. So, with my paranoia of thinking everyone can read my mind, or is that they know something about me that I don't know, or that they've worked out that I'm not in the right body. Although it's horrible when it's happening, I can now kind of go, well, maybe I can mentalize backwards and go, maybe it's actually because I've got tattoos that they're looking at me, because I've got piercings that they're looking at me, and that calms me down, but it's still real in my head, if that makes sense. It's still happened, but I've mentalized myself calm, which is good for the basis of my medication, because I'm questioning everything. Whenever I hear a new voice, I mention it to my therapist, so they know that something new's happened that to me that they can kind of help with. So, like I've recently had my meds upped again, because I've started to feel normal. And I know that sounds stupid, but when I say I feel normal, I mean that everything that happens to me, the voices, the things I see, the thoughts I believe, are 100% real. And that my psychiatrist and my therapist are all wrong, that, there's nothing wrong with me, and they're just blind, basically. And, as much as I believe that, there's this part of me through the therapy is reminding me that that's not the case, or it might not be the case. Not that it's not the case, it might not be the case. So with the medication, it helps me kind of question everything. That's the best way to say it, is I question everything. I question every sound, every thought, just to have some control over it, because otherwise I feel like everything's controlled. Like my life, everything that happens in my life happens for a reason, because the darkness has made that happen. It's put me in that situation where I come face to face with that, where this event happens, where that event happens. Nothing is coincidental, nothing is random. It's all set out, it's all planned, and that's what I believe. That is, to me, the truth of the matter. And it just annoys me that I've got to question it, because everyone else gets to believe their truths. Everyone else gets to believe how their life is, but I'm not allowed to, just because it's different, and just because people don't understand it. I've got to question it. And it's that one thing that, being diagnosed with mental health, like severe mental health problems, actually does change your life. It knocks it all over. Because when I was first diagnosed as having delusions and psychosis, it just made me feel like my entire life was a lie, that nothing was real, and that I should have been in a completely different place to where I am now. But because I've got what I've got, I'm stuck in this cycle, this mess, this whatever, and you feel so alone. You have no one that can understand you, and everyone just goes, "Oh, you're crazy. I have people calling me, "Oh, it's just Dom. He's crazy." And yeah, okay. Maybe in your terms, in your world, in your mind, I'm crazy. But in here, you're fucking crazy. You're all crazy. Because, you know, I'm right, you're wrong. Why do you have to be right? You know, I just don't understand. It that's it's just confusing. You know, I'm confusing. I confuse my psychiatrists. I confuse myself. I confuse my friends. But, you know, at the end of the day, I'm me. I'm Dom. No matter what I see, what I hear, what I experience, I am Dom. And I expect people to accept me for who I am. Because, you know, if you don't, you're taking away my personality, because you want me to be what you want me to be. And that's not, you don't do that to anyone else. So why do it to me just because I'm crazy? You know, I don't know. I hope this kind of answered those questions. But until next time, bye.